Sitting back, you really wonder what goes on in these crazies' heads whenever they're doing said anything. Is there thoughts? Is there coherentness? Is there nothing but an empty space that is happening? Are they hearing voices like Joey, or seeing dead people that are telling them to light buildings on fire, commit massive amount of fraud and crime, and come into the country illegally and do horrible and evil things? I mean, it makes you wonder, right? Like, what makes people tick? You know, what makes them function? What do you get out of bed every day for? Good to see you, Patriots, in the chat. Just something, food for thought. Just something to think about, because our brains work, other people's don't. Not all the time, I can't speak for you. I can only speak for myself. It works half the time. It really does. It works half the time. It's good to see you guys. Damn, it's good to see you, because things are going nutso. What's going on with the market? Did Donald Trump bend his own knee and kiss his own finger yesterday? Did Donald Trump basically kick his own ass? That's what we're going to find out today. I'm going to break it down for y'all, folks, because a lot of people are saying a lot of things. And a lot of things are crazy that they're saying. And we can look back in history and at least take a glimpse at a similar scenario. And I think Donald Trump realized it. And, I'll leave it up to you if he bent the knee or not when I'm said and done talking about everything. So, as you heard, everybody's talking about China. Everybody's talking about Donald. So what we have taking place here, let's go through it. The market did surge yesterday after our show, and it made a big comeback. I mean, it was pumping, baby. That was a hefty increase, let me tell you. Now, we didn't fully rebound, but damn, man, that was something. The stock market quickly rebounded on Wednesday afternoon after Donald Trump announced that he would be pausing his reciprocal Liberation Day tariffs on all countries except China. Responding to Trump's announcement, the Dow Jones Industrial Average and S&P 500, NASDAQ, had all climbed above their Tuesday close by early Wednesday, meaning there was major ground covered. He was raising tariffs on China to 125% and lowering tariffs across the rest of the board to 10%, pausing the steeper reciprocal hikes. This obviously gave a lot of positivity in the market, and so people started rushing to it. So after the news, the Dow Jones jumped to 40,000, a 6% increase on the day, and higher than its 37,645 close on Tuesday. The S&P 500 climbed 5,300 points, almost 5,400 points, an 8% increase on the day, and higher than its Tuesday close of basically 5,000. The NASDAQ jumped as well. It was a 10% increase. In his announcement, Trump said that he was implementing a 10% tariff on all imports coming into the United States and a 125% tariff on China because of their retaliatory action. So we'll get into a little bit of what Trump said in a moment. But I think one variable, and we're going to kind of break down a few things for you guys. One variable here is that not just was the market going down, but I think there was one variable was so many people were calling Donald Trump to negotiate deals. And I think almost every country was saying, hey, can we pause this for a moment? Let's talk about it. Let's negotiate. And if things don't come out, then yeah, do the tariffs that you need to do. But let's at least talk about it and not be basically shooting each other in the foot while we negotiate. So that's my best guess. I don't have any proof of that, by the way, but I think that was one of the reasons of the many, which we will get to. Based on the fact that more than 75 countries have called representatives in the United States, including the Departments of Commerce, Treasury, and the USTR, to negotiate a solution to the subjects being discussed relative to trade barriers, tariffs, currency manipulation, non-monetary tariffs, and these countries have not, in my strong suggestion, retaliated in any way, shape, or form against the United States, I have authorized a 90-day pause and a substantially lower reciprocal tariff during this period of 10% effective immediately. Now, this is a good move on Trump because things happen. Things really did happen yesterday. And I think he finally realized the part that he was hoping wouldn't have happened. Okay. So what am I talking about there? Well, we'll get there. I'm keeping you hook, line, and sinker, baby. I'm reeling you in, but I promise I'm going to explain what I think happened. And I'll give you a little bit of a tip. We kind of explained it before, and you can't really move forward if this one thing were to happen. A deal is going to be made with everyone, Trump speaks after dropping most tariffs for 90 days. I do have a clip here if it wants to load for me. That'd be lovely here. Let's see if this link will work. Let's see if we got it for you guys. Here he is.
With every one of them. A deal's going to be made with China. A deal's going to be made with every one of them. And there'll be fair deals. I just want fair. They will be fair deals for everybody. But they weren't fair to the United States. They were sucking us dry, and you can't do that. You know, we have $36 trillion of debt for a reason. We don't have it there for fun. They have it for a reason. And people took advantage of our country, and they ripped us off for decades. I've been thinking about this for decades. If you ever saw me on television, I was young like these guys. And it was the good old days, I'll tell you, Roger. But I was like these guys, young, and I was talking about it. Nothing changed, and nothing was done about it. Then I did it. In my first term, I did it, and did it well. We took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China and others, and I started the process. But then we had to fix up from the COVID mess caused by China. We had to fix up from that, and we did a good job of doing it. And when we handed back the reins after a rigged election, and when we handed back the reins, the stock market was higher than it was before COVID coming in. So, you know, we did a great job, but we didn't have time to do the big thing, which we're doing now. And it's, you know, it's like a patient is sick, you have to do surgery. Patient is very, very sick. And Joe Biden handed us over a country that was in very serious trouble, economically and in every other way. They let China run away with things. They let other countries run away with things.
There's definitely truth to that. And he kind of went on and then kind of spun it into normal Trump talk of illegal immigrants. It's just kind of, I don't want to say spiraled, but, you know, did his normal thing. So here's what was trending late last night. U.S. raises China tariffs to 125%. China responds with 84% tariffs. So on April 9th, the United States announced that it would increase tariffs on China imports for 104% to 125%, effective immediately, by the way. In response, China imposed a 84% tariff on all U.S. imported goods. These tariffs adjustments have led to significant market reactions, including Amazon canceling inventory orders from China and the Dow Jones recording its highest single-day gain in history. Now, again, one of the variables was, I think a lot of people are calling saying, hey, let's negotiate without shooting each other in the foot while we negotiate. Let's figure it out for a while. And then I also think that it wasn't a bad option because now you could put all your focus on China and really try to weaken them and see, one, if they're willing to negotiate. Rumor is that China is willing to negotiate. We'll see if that's actually true, because I don't know if they'll actually negotiate in good faith. This is the same country that manipulates its currency. This is the same country that cheats all the time. This is the same country that's concentration camps. This is the same country that utilizes cheap labor and has no regulation on that labor, but yet we have regulations and we don't have cheap labor over here. You don't allow certain markets to enter into your market. I mean, the list goes on and on here of the horrible business practices and things that China does, and it's not fair whatsoever. And so rather than going to battle with everybody, Donald Trump can put now his focus on China and then try to get those negotiations with everybody else. I've been saying this for a while. I think you need to look at what areas of China that you can remove your manufacturing out of. And let's just make the case that those manufacturing jobs are not going to come to the United States. So let's just make that case just really quick. I'm not saying that's going to happen, just building a scenario. Then let's send that manufacturing to our allies at least. Somebody that if we were to go to war with, we would probably still have something coming our way. I keep emphasizing this and I don't understand. People go, this is the people's response. Well, I don't think we'll really go to war with China. You don't think? Like, it's just, you just replaced China with any other country that was the Axis power back in the day during that time period. Let me know if your opinion changes then. Granted, you know, we can look back on history, but I don't trust the Chinese. I don't trust the Russians either, by the way. So I don't trust men. I don't trust Iran. I don't want to do work with. I'm surprised Trump even wants to negotiate with them. They're bad faith actors. I don't want to do any work with them. Now you have to in some way, shape, or form because they specialize in certain markets and certain industries. But I'm saying if you can, let's just say you got 50% of your goods coming from China. Well, maybe we can give 5% to Vietnam. Maybe we can give 10% to the Philippines. Maybe we give another 10% to South Korea. Maybe we give another 10% to Japan and have them focus on those markets. Well, now you just dropped however much you're trading with China by quite a bit. Will prices increase? Yes, but that price increase is going to be a lot cheaper than it would be if China decides to go into Taiwan because China ain't doing so well right now. China ain't doing so well no matter what the media tells you. And Kevin O'Leary understands this. He says, look, tariffs on China should be 400% effective immediately. So he took to, I think it was CNN or MSNBC, but I think it was CNN. And he talks about this. So here's that clip of him yesterday. So I apologize. That's kind of a small clip.
That they're literally kissing his ass was the phrase he used, very eloquently. Where are the deals?
104% tariffs on China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology, they steal it, they manufacture it and sell it back here. Never has an administration.
400% tariffs? What would that look like?
I want Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field. This is not about tariffs anymore. Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. I speak for millions of Americans who have IP that have been stolen by the Chinese. I have nothing against the Chinese people. They brought great literacy, art, and tech to the world. The government cheats and steals, and finally, an administration, you may not like Trump, you may not like his style or his rhetoric, finally, an administration that puts up and says enough. 400% tariffs tomorrow morning. He'll tell you why. Xi can only stay the supreme leader if people are employed. If we wipe out any business there, because we are still 39% of all consumables on Earth and 25% of the world's GDP, America is the #1 economy on Earth with all the cards. We will not have that forever. It's time to squeeze Chinese heads into the wall now.
That's very very interesting language coming from Mr. Wonderful. Now, it's always tough when you hear somebody like him speak, hey, we'll just increase it 400%. Look, I got businesses over at China. I make deals over there in China. I understand how they're cheating, but you're also making a lot more money than the rest of us, and that you can incur that type of inflated price of whatever good or service is coming from China. So that's, and CNN kind of did go on a little bit further there. It kind of mentioned that idea of, well, what about kind of like the common people, like you, all of us here? Can we incur that type of inflated rate of whatever goods are coming in? And I don't have an answer for you on that one. I really don't. But this was an important move for Donald Trump to kind of put a pause on the tariffs for all these other countries, because the scenario that I gave you was the best case scenario, right? And I'm gonna display it again, because one of those pieces, one of those bullet points that I had that I think Donald Trump was hoping would happen, didn't happen. And this is where we kind of have him basically immediately going out on the White House lawn like he did yesterday. It wasn't on literally the lawn, but you understand what I mean. You come out of the White House and do that clip that we saw of saying, I'm doing something immediately. So we're $36 trillion in debt. We have Doge cutting hopefully $2 trillion by July 4th, 2026 of next year, which will make our deficit zero. At least our budget will be balanced, hopefully. And then you have Donald Trump putting in the tax cuts, which is more money in the pockets of the American people. And we're also supposed to be refinancing somewhere in the realm of $6 and $9 trillion. Well, when you start going to battle and you're imposing tariffs to bring in more revenue here in the United States, it's basically just a tax, right? He's saying, oh, well, we're bringing in $2 billion a day. That's $2 billion in taxes a day, basically. And the market dips. Well, when the market dips, people are going to sell off, which is what was happening. We were seeing that. So that's objective, verifiable evidence of what we saw. But people want to still invest. They still want to outcompete inflation, which is about, I think last month was 2.8%. So you want to outcompete that. You don't want to lose 2.8% valuation of the purchasing power of your dollar. So they go somewhere else. And what's the less risky, almost guaranteed form of you investing and getting your money? Government bonds. The reason why? Government could print money. I'm not saying you should do it, but that's what they can to make sure that they will actually pay it off. Well, that is the best case scenario, because when people are streaming to the bonds, the interest rates are going to drop. And when the interest rates drop, then you could refi. But here's where there was a problem. And this is exactly what we said and talked about 2 weeks ago. I brought this to your attention. Remember when we watched my favorite economist, Thomas Sowell? As a matter of fact, let me see if I can even bring that up here for you. There was a clip that we showed, and he was talking about how this might not be the best of moves for Donald Trump to do. And it was April 1st. I believe this is it right here.
What do you make of the present President of the United States and his tariffs?
It's painful.
This is my number one guy. If you could read any of his books, I highly recommend. Every single one you could possibly get your hands on. Some of them are hard to find now. But listen very carefully what he's saying here, because he's correct. And this is exactly what happened.
To see what a ruinous decision from back in the 1920s being repeated. Now, insofar as he's using these tariffs to get very strategic things settled, and that he is satisfied with that. But if you set off a worldwide trade war, that has a devastating history. Everybody loses because everybody follows suit, and all that happens is that you get a great reduction in international trade. The other, it's disturbing in another sense. Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Listen to this part, because this is what I specifically was looking for and trying to see what would happen with Donald Trump as we moved forward with these tariffs. This was the exact moment in history that I'm talking about. If he doesn't elaborate too much on here, I will once the video's done.
When he was president in the 1930s, said that you have to try things, and if they don't work, then you admit it, you abandon that, and you go on to something else, and you try that until you come across something that does work. Now that's not a bad approach if you are operating within a known system of rules. But if you are the one who's making the rules, then all the other people have no idea what you're going to do next. And that is a formula for having people hang on to their money.
Focus on that. To hang on to their money. That was a point that I told you guys. Best case scenario, people want to go invest into something less risky like government bonds, but there's also that scenario that they hold on to their money. We're in trouble.
Until they figure out what you're going to do. And when a lot of people hang on to their money, you can get results such as you got during the Great Depression of the 1930s. So if this is just a set of short-run ploys for various limited objectives, limited in time, fine, maybe. But if this is going to be the policy for 4 long years, that you're going to try this, you're going to try that, you're going to try something else, a lot of people are going to wait. I think what happened in the stock market recently when things came down about substantially for quite a while. And I note that various people are holding on to their money before they do anything because they don't know where this is going to lead.
And that's another factor. By the way, that's my number one guy. There's very few people on this earth that I've probably shed a tear for that I've never met in my entire life. This guy right here, I'm telling you, he's my number one guy. My number one guy. And if you think that guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, you're crazy. You are out of your damn mind if you think that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Thomas Sowell is one of the greatest human beings that's ever walked this earth. And I mean that in all literal sense. What happened that not a lot of people are speaking about was what kind of Thomas Sowell was saying. People were not going up and buying bonds. Matter of fact, they were doing the complete opposite. They were selling off the bonds. So not only were they selling off the market, they were selling off their bonds as well. Folks, that has a direct tie to basically what Thomas Sowell, and not to mention the fact of what happened in the Great Depression of the 1930s, but you can actually read this in a couple of his books, Basic Economics, which is like, it's a super thick book. That's what she said. You also have the Visions of the Anointed, where he emphasized how panic, bad government policy, and a breakdown of investor confidence all played major roles in the deepening and prolonging the Depression, and not just the initial market crash in the 1929. You have that flight to cash and market panic, which is kind of what we were seeing a little bit here with Donald Trump. I shouldn't say a little bit. We had a sharp decline. And so there was this idea where people just didn't lose confidence in the stocks themselves. They lost confidence in the entire financial system, including banking and bonds. What we were seeing was people were losing confidence because the communication, as I've mentioned, look, I voted for Donald Trump 3 times. If you don't want to hear it, I get it. But I'm only giving you what I think is true. I'm never going to bullshit you guys. You get a lot of conservatives out there. This is like just not doing nothing but praising. I'm just going to tell you, I think the guy realized that shit hit the fan. He realized it. And he said, hey, you know what? We need to negotiate really quick. Let's put a pause on this. Because when people start selling bonds, and I think he was hoping this wouldn't happen, I really do, that, and I think that was part of his plan. And he goes, well, now the plan's not working because this is happening. This could go into very, very serious shit. And that's when he came out yesterday. So people start pulling money out of banks, by the way, when this happens, hoarding of cash, which is currently what's taking place, and a freeze in credit and investment. Furthermore, government inference made things worse, distorted incentives and delayed recovery. I mean, there's a lot that goes into this, but that was the part that I wanted to make sure I brought to your attention was the selling of the bonds. People were hoarding their money. Money's not going back in the market, not to mention that you're increasing tariffs. So this was a recipe for disaster. And Donald Trump knew the moment that people, because he was watching it, it wasn't like everything just happened yesterday. People were slowly and incrementally selling off bonds. And I think his team was watching it happen. And then it I'm trying not to cuss. It really happened. It hit pretty hard the other day. And he came out and he had to put not to lose the youngsters lingo nowadays, but a full stop on the tariffs because he knew where this would go. And it would have spiraled out of control, so much so that he wouldn't be able to get his grip onto it. And we all would have been effed, by the way. So this was a move that Trump knew he needed to make. This is a move that also doesn't put him in a terrible position. And the reason why I mean that is people like Ben Shapiro were mentioning, and I love Ben Shapiro. I read all his books as well. I've been a big fan of his since 2014, I think it was. Technically earlier. Is they're saying this wasn't part of his agenda. If this was part of his agenda, this or that. Well, we don't know what was a part of his agenda. Because Ben Shapiro is making the claim through an article yesterday that if this was a part of his agenda, there was no need to implement all these crazy tariffs on everybody else or everybody just in general. You could have just went to your allies and negotiated with them. Well, that's assuming that your allies wanted to negotiate with you in the first place. And I'm not so sure that they did. That's a big assumption to make. I'm not so sure that they wanted to negotiate. These are the same people like Germany that laughed in Donald Trump's face when he told them, hey, you're going to go buy energy from Russia, an enemy? That's kind of crazy, isn't it? They all laughed in his face. And then they were burning wood to keep their houses heated not too long ago. So I'm not so sure they would. And again, I love Ben. But it could have been a part of his agenda to shock the market so that people were wanting and willing to negotiate at all. And now he has a streamline of people. He maybe got what he wanted out of it. And now he's able to negotiate with them, lower the tariffs, bump the market back up, and we're good. I do believe, I don't think he thought the bonds thing was going to happen. I think he thought it might have happened. And that was all part of kind of what was baked into the cake. And if it were to happen, well, then, hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and put a pause on the tariffs. Let's negotiate with everybody and we'll figure it out. So I do think, he did the right move here. Clearly, he did the right move. And that's just my best guess. Other podcasters are going to say something different, but try to check out to see if they're going to mention that bonds thing to you, because I guarantee you not many people are going to talk about that. Now what they're doing is they're sending the whole team out there and just doing nothing but, I don't want to say damage control. That's not what I'm talking about, but trying to enhance the communications of why Donald Trump did what he did and kind of building the case of we still need to look at this regardless of whether we're putting a pause on the tariffs or not, because we don't manufacture anything here anymore. That's a big problem. Sean Duffy, Secretary of Transportation, is doing a phenomenal job. And here he is talking about how we don't even make ships here anymore. We don't make anything here anymore.
Okay, a little off page on the market and tariffs, but we don't build ships in America anymore. In 2022, we built 5 ships. 5. China built 1,800 ships in 2022, right? So if you want to be a global power, you have to build ships and you have to have sailors to sail those ships. And so the president today said, you know what? We are going to actually build ships in America again, and we're going to train the mariners to sail those ships. So DOT has a huge component of that. We're excited. But this president, he thinks long-term and strategically and understands that if there's a crisis in the world that involves our military, we need ships to support the military on the commerce side, and we don't make them anymore. So again, that was great. But shipbuilding, okay, a little off page on the market and tariffs, but we don't build ships in America anymore. In 2022.
Alrighty, he's correct. Sorry, folks, I was looking over here. We had a psycho over there. The second he wrote that racist comment, yeah, he's banned forever. That ain't happening. You don't come in here and write racist. Legit, it wasn't. Everybody saw it over at Rumble. That wasn't a might have been racist. People will kind of classify racism as prejudice and discrimination. What that dude just said was straight up racist, by the way. That ain't flying with me. Yeah, that's the first. By the way, I want to note that real quick. I've been doing this for over 4 years, almost every single day for 4 years. That is the first person I've ever banned here on the Bald Brad Show, ever. From comments or anything. That was Turbo086. That dude was banned from the channel forever. I've always emphasized this, and that's the proof. I don't put up with shit if somebody's saying some racist stuff. I don't like racism. I think it's evil. I think it's wrong. It's disgusting. It's despicable. And that shit ain't gonna fly. I've said that before. If anybody's a follower of the Bald Brad Show and you're gonna say some racist shit, get the hell out of my channel, because I don't want to be associated with you. Now, I don't think anybody in here is, but it still needs to be said because the left call us racist all the time. Yeah, that ain't going to fly. I'm the party that actually enabled civil rights. I'm the party that actually fought to free black people. I don't need this shit from Democrats. As you can tell, I'm a little hyped up. I don't like racism at all. It frustrates the hell out of me. Now, people can make jokes. That wasn't a joke, though, what that guy was doing. That was messed up. By the way, that person's a progressive. Shocker. How somebody on the progressive side of the aisle, the left side of the aisle, is a psycho and a racist. That's crazy. By the way, they call us racist. We don't say anything racist. That dude legit, I can't even put it this way. I can't even say what that guy said on here because I have potential of getting removed. Well, here you have David Asman Fox. Said ass, my bad. Oopsie. The great thing about what POTUS has been doing the last couple of weeks, it's all been transparent. Not so, okay. True, but not totally true. I would say it's more foggy because the communication has totally sucked. But here it is nonetheless.
Going to be a part of that, China, unless they come groveling and he's able to make them the deal of a lifetime because of the fact that, the great thing about what he's been doing the past couple of weeks, it's all been transparent. I mean, Bessent said from the very beginning, this is the high mark. If you start making a deal with us right away, it'll come down from here. All of the tariffs will come down as soon as we start talking. Instead, China thought that they could talk Trump out of it or even bully him in some way. Forget about it. It ain't going to happen. They need us so much more than we need them. And the rest of the world is coming. They're coming politely. They're flying here from Japan, from Korea, from all over the world in order to make a deal. He really, because of the transparency, I don't know if they just didn't believe what he was saying, the Chinese. The good thing about Trump is he didn't focus on an individual. He didn't say she's an idiot, even though he probably is at this point, or at least he's very desperate. He's got problems of his own back in China. But for some reason, they didn't believe what he was saying, what Bessent was saying, what the others were saying. It was one of the biggest miscalculations, I think, in the history of trade negotiations in human history. I've never seen anything like it. China's going to fail as a result of this, fail big time, and she may fail big time as well.
I think the key word there is may fail big time. Now, this is why you want to follow me on X. I try to find things that people are talking about, but also things that you might find interesting. So we do have people watching us over on X. I appreciate you. Excuse me. Well, check this out. I posted this late last night. The yuan fell to its lowest level since 2007. 18 years it's been since China has seen their currency at the place that it is now. 18, almost 2 decades completely wiped out. And that's not even the full effect yet. I want to keep mentioning this. China isn't exactly flourishing. And I think that's the part that Democrats keep forgetting is, well, I think a lot of people in general, because there's a lot of misconceptions out there. Well, China owns our ass. Because what China does is, and we've talked about this, say we were to send a vehicle over to China, they're going to tax us, right, on that import. Technically, it's a tax on their people, which makes our vehicle more expensive to sell in China. And since China can produce vehicles cheaper themselves and sell their own vehicle in China, their vehicles are going to outcompete the American vehicles because it's so expensive. Well, remember, not only are they manipulating their currency, which we've talked about, and this is the part that's manipulative, is that when we send over our vehicle into China, well, what they do is that they don't transfer that US dollar into their currency. A portion of it they do. Most of it they will take and buy US bonds with it. And so that's why a lot of people think, well, they own our ass. No, China does not own our, you know what? Of that 36, almost $37 trillion, I don't even think it's $1 trillion yet. I want to say it's like 800 billion or something. It's still a lot of money. But I want to say previous numbers, things changed. This was a while ago. I found this number. It was like 7% of our debt was owed to China. Now, you might think that's a lot, and truthfully it is, but it's not anywhere in the near of like, oh, they own us. Oh, it's crippling. No, not yet. It might get there someday, but that's what they're doing is rather than allowing their currency to become stronger at the rate that it's normal or supposed to, they're keeping it suppressed because when you keep your currency suppressed, it is cheaper to make goods and services. And that's why they're still having a manufacturing boom. I'm sorry, but you don't make it 50 years of being the main manufacturer of the planet and still be at the rates that you're at. That is a delayed industrial revolution. And that's something that should have been a paved path in like 25, 30 years, not 50 plus. I've always said, think about natural order when you're thinking of things, how they function in the world. And that will help you kind of understand a lot of things a lot better. Where, for example, if we were to walk on a trail and there's no path, well, it's going to take a while to cut down the bushes with a machete and build the path yourself. But the people that come years later, well, now they just get to walk on the path. It ain't that bad. They might have to cut down some stuff, a little bit of overgrowth. But other than that, they're going to go through that trail a lot faster than your ass did. And it was the same way for the United States. We had to really struggle through our industrial revolution. We really had to pave the path. We really had to make the way. But for everybody else that comes after us, because we've already paved that way, because we've already advanced as a civilization here in the United States, everybody else will advance through their revolutions, no matter what it is, a lot faster. And you have to allow the countries to go through those. That is a part of the development of those nations. That is a part of all the necessary requirements it is to advance as a civilization. And that's the part that I think Democrats and the progressive left miss out. They go, well, look at the way these people are living. It's terrible. There is truth to that. But you have to allow those countries to go through those movements. You can't leap and jump over, at least from what we've seen throughout history. So that's something I suppose could be expanded upon. It wasn't really something I necessarily wanted to go into here on the show, but it is a fascinating concept if you look into it on your own time. The idea that people's industrial revolutions or whatever process they are or moment in time in terms of advancing as their civilization, they will go through it not only quicker, but they have to go through it nonetheless. And that's what India is going through. That's what China is going through. That's what Vietnam is going through. That's what the Philippines are going through. A lot of these countries are just delayed movement of what we used to be, and they're advancing quicker because we've already paved that path. Now, moving forward here, you have Lutnick coming out and says China chose the path of going against POTUS, and they're getting hit hard here.
China chose the path of going against Donald Trump. I mean, he said, don't retaliate. If you retaliate, then you're going to feel my wrath, and that's what happened. They retaliated, so then Donald Trump came back, and then they went back, and Donald Trump comes back again. You know, the fact is either China's going to come to the table and make the right deal with Donald Trump, or they're not. And they are. I mean, remember, China has a $295 billion trade deficit with us, but they also go through all these other countries. They go through Vietnam. They go through Thailand. They go through Malaysia. These were all sort of like tariff runarounds where they go to Vietnam and then go to America. So, you know, if you add that all up, it's just under $1 trillion that China sells to us, more than net we sell to them. And that is just not sustainable. The president knows it. The president is calling it out. And either China comes to the table with Donald Trump or they don't. But let's be clear, we are their biggest client by far, by far, by far. The American consumer buys everything from China. They can't afford to be without us, and that's where we are today. Well,
now, that's only one side of the coin, right? The question is, can we afford to be without them? That is the question on everybody's mind. And that's what I'm saying is whatever we're producing there has to be redistributed to our allies. One, that creates more of a national security measure for us. It keeps us a little bit more safe, less risk, might be more expensive at the end of the day. If everybody's trying to get out of paying for more expensive goods, I'm not sure if that's going to happen. You almost have to pick your poison. Do you want to still work with China that's going to manipulate their currency, treat people poorly in their country? They still use child labor. They still use forced labor in some parts of the world, by the way. Do you still want to? And it's so remarkable that the progressive left and Democrat Party is going to bitch and complain about all our labor practices here, but yet there's countries that they want to do work with. Here from the United States, the Democrat Party wants to do work with people that are allowing children and forced labor, tens of thousands of people in these mining operations that are indentured servitude or slavery, and they won't allow that still to happen. But there's no complaining on their end from there. Oh yeah, no, they'll turn a blind eye to that real quick. Anything that's negative that they talk about, that they want to support, yeah, well, they don't want to talk about it. Here's the real thing. That's the real talk. They don't want to mention it because now you're just calling them out for their crap that they're allegedly going against. And we're going to end up paying for more expensive goods if that's what we want. If we want to be able to compete in the world, you either have to go two routes. Well, I guess three technically, right? You can either lower your labor, which isn't going to happen because Democrats go through the roof. People want to live like the Kardashians all the time. Or, you stagnate the labor, which maybe that's what needs to happen. Or you're going to end up increasing your labor and you're going to be outcompeted by the global market because now we're dealing with globalism. We're not dealing with locality structures necessarily. We're not dealing with state structures. Those are all part of it, by the way. Those are all variables. But now we're dealing with globalism. And now you're competing for other countries' labor. Before that wasn't the case. And this is why I always talk about the auto manufacturers. You're going to compete against Mexico. And if you're going to continually unionize and you want to unionize to get more labor, more money, well, now you're competing yourself against everybody else in Mexico. The businesses are going to be forced. They need to stay in business. They're not responding to the workers. They're responding to the shareholders. They're going to move their business somewhere else because that's who they're responding to. By the way, they might not have a business if you start increasing labor so much where now they're not going to be able to sell and make a profit. Well, then at some point you have no damn job because you wanted to keep continually asking for money. And they're saying, look, we can't do it. So, I mean, that's the best I can do to explain it in a very simple manner. Now, let's get into a little bit of fun. Scott Jennings has a clip out. It's very short, but let me give you a little bit of backstory on this. Scott Jennings and the crew here were talking about trade war with China. And she started getting a little bit spicy with Scott. And Scott mentioned how she was fired from her last job. And this is where it's going to be picking up from. Because you're going to hear her say, oh, well, you know, the personal attacks. But Scott's face summarizes, I guess, how everybody's face would be on CNN having to deal with these idiots. Here we go.
You want to engage in personal insults?
I don't, but you
what
do.
You lack in the legitimate point, you make up for it in personal
I don't, you
personal
do.
insults. The point I am making is in this new world order, we are looking at countries, whether or not they're an adversary or ally, it is being determined on what kind of deal we can get. And we cannot govern, we cannot legislate that way. We are increasingly isolated on the world stage.
No, we're not.
So if you want to engage in personal...
We cannot govern... And did she say the word legislate? Hold on a second.
We can get, and we cannot govern, we cannot legislate that way.
And I think Scott raises a great point. Why not? What? You can't govern and negotiate and ask questions about it? So here's a little bit. I was trying to find the whole clip of it. Here's kind of the longer version of it.
And you cannot just go and say, I like it, it's mine now. It doesn't work that way. Well, that is what they're trying to do. And in this new world order, yeah, absolutely. When they're looking at Greenland and say, I like it, I want to take it for mine, that is a very colonizing attitude.
I have never ever said we're going to go to Greenland and quote colonize it or steal it.
You're not a member of government, so you're irrelevant at that point. I'm talking about the president of the United States doing that.
You got fired from your job.
You can agitate. Scott, if you want to engage in personal insults,
I don't, but you
what
do.
You lack in the legitimate point, you make up for it in personal
I don't, you
personal
do.
insults. The point I am making is in this new world order, we are looking at countries, whether or not they're an adversary or ally, it is being determined on what kind of deal we can get. And we cannot govern, we cannot legislate that way. We are increasingly isolated on the world stage.
No, we're not.
So if you want to engage in personal insults,
we're not
if I were
isolated.
you, I would reserve that for your party, who
We're
is
not
increasingly
isolated.
isolated. Our position
outside of the United States.
Land, you can.
We're increasingly isolated. Everybody wants to do business with us. That's why everybody's calling him and trying to get Donald Trump to talk to them. What is she talking about? By the way, this is how you should govern. You don't want people to take advantage of you and the American worker. And that's why you have Donald Trump that's willing to step up to the plate to speak on behalf of all of us, which is what we wanted, because we were tired of having Joey in office that would rather sleep and freaking drink from his bottle all day long and go on vacations for almost 50% of his presidency. We wanted somebody that was going to speak on behalf of the American people. It's wild. It is wild. Now, this one caught me by surprise. This one did. I don't know how true it is because it's coming from the Washington Post. WAPO. But allegedly, the Iranians want to talk. Now, I think it was just literally yesterday, I was like, look, I mean, I wouldn't negotiate with the Iranians. They're bad faith actors. I don't believe in them at all. But we have this here. I didn't think that the Iranians wanted it, but I guess Iran's foreign minister said the Iranian regime is ready to make a deal with the United States ahead of the Trump administration's planned negotiations this Saturday. Writing in the Washington Post, I guess the foreign minister said the negotiations would be indirect, despite President Donald Trump stating that they would be a high-level indirect on Monday. Now, this was a question and was emphasized in the White House press briefing on the 8th, April 8th, a couple days ago, where a reporter asked this very same question of, we're hearing from the Iranians that it's going to be indirect conversations, but the president is saying it's going to be direct. So which one is it? And Caroline Leavitt was very specific, and she said these are going to be direct negotiations, high-level conversations with the Iranians. And that's kind of, again, specified right here. I mean, she was clear on it. Iranian state-run media reported that the talks would be between the foreign minister of Iran and the U.S. presidential envoy, Steve Witkoff, who has been doing just amazing work. I mean, he's one of the greats clearly right now. I mean, this guy is doing work left and right. along with Marco Rubio. Both of them are caught me by surprise. Let's just say they're doing a lot better than I thought they were going to do, especially Marco. That guy's kicking ass, man. The foreign minister wrote that the Iranian regime has been exchanging messages and letters with the Trump administration for weeks. He added that the communication represents a genuine attempt to clarify positions and open a window toward diplomacy. The foreign minister said that he experienced negotiations and negotiating with the United States in 2021, though a deal was not possible because of lack of real determination by the Biden administration. That's a heavy statement. Lack of real determination by the Biden administration, which tells you that the Biden is that saying that the Biden administration didn't have a heart in the deal? Or is this a statement that's trying to butter up Trump a little bit because Trump knows that the Biden administration was weak? I'm not quite sure. Again, I don't trust the Iranian regime. They're very manipulative and a bunch of liars. He added that the Iranian regime is distrustful. Yes, there you go. There you go, right there. He added that the Iranian regime is distrustful and harbors serious doubts about the Trump administration's intentions, citing Trump resuming his maximum pressure campaign after returning to office. The Iranian regime is distrustful. And I don't believe that they're not going to stop. I don't believe that they're just going to stop trying to build a nuclear warhead. They're doing everything in their power to do so. You also have this coming out. And by the way, before we jump into this next article, it's going to be talking about buying furniture on your dime, on your taxpayer dollars. Hit that like button. It really does support us. And if you're new here, let us know in the chat. Let us know. Come hang out with us. We got a lot of patrons in the chat, a lot of awesome people that would love to chat with you. We can laugh. We can have fun. We can also boot racists that come in the chat. That was always fun. That's the first time that's ever happened in 4 years, which is pretty damn good. By the way, we've done this for over 2,400 videos. That's the first person ever. Well, not to go back on the past of what we've done here in the Bald Brad Show, but we're also going to go to the past to 2020. There was reportedly $4.6 billion for new furniture since 2020, during a time when only about half of all federal employees even showed up to work in the first place. What? So my question is, are we buying furniture for people's houses? Are we buying furniture for people just to fill their living rooms with? Because if they're not at work, what are they doing with it? And by the way, do they get to keep it? I mean, that's government property. We just got done seeing Benny Johnson go into the EPA and it was a ghost town. There ain't anybody there. But you have this here from the New York Post. Feds forked over $4.6 billion for new furniture, despite just half of employees showing up for work. You have this coming out. A taxpayer watchdog group president told a House panel Tuesday, despite just around half of all agency employees showing up for work as of last year. Open the Books CEO John Hart shared the high cost for every agency sprucing up during the bulk of the COVID-19 pandemic and former President Joe Biden's term during House oversight delivering on government efficiency and subcommittee hearing. And by the way, the question is, where did that money go? Did it really go to furniture? And how much was a lawn chair? Are we paying $80,000 for a lawn chair? The amount can buy 9.2 million American families a modest $500 kitchen table, Hart said, of the billions of dollars splurged on the federal real estate portfolio that was effectively decorating and redecorating the administrative state. And of course, workplaces need desks, chairs, and meeting tables. And it's true that beautiful spaces can make us more productive, but beauty at what cost and on whose dime? Well, the American taxpayer dime. It's always easy when it's somebody else's money to spend somebody else's money. The Office of Management and Budget found in May 2024 that more than half of federal employees were either teleworking regularly or fully remote. The year before, the Government Accountability Office audited the use of federal workspaces and discovered 17 of the 24 federal agencies surveyed used only 25% or less of their headquarter buildings, meaning waste, basically maybe some of it fraud. President Trump later issued a return to work order for all federal employees after returning to the White House that was struck down by the Supreme Court on Tuesday. According to Open the Books, figures shared with the Post, The United States government doled out $4 million for furniture and cubicles in U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, offices in Ukraine, by the way, West Africa and Mozambique, the last of which filled spaces with $250,000 worth of Herman Miller chairs. Herman Miller, I recently found out, are some expensive chairs. And by the way, some of the advertisements you might have seen, like coming down here, you know, sometimes there's advertisements here or right here. You will see Herman Miller chairs. Do you want to know why you see Herman Miller chairs? Is because I was looking up the price a while ago because I knew about this going on. They are expensive. So they're sitting in cush chairs, probably remodeling every which direction they possibly can to make sure their budgets stay up. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But, you know, we have them coming out and get this, they're protesting. They're protesting. This one I'm about to show you is freaking insane. Listen carefully, because I don't want you to think that I'm misquoting this. Remote workers came back to work only to protest returning to the office. I'm going to say that again because I think some of you might have missed it. According to Iowa GOP Senator Miss Ernst, some federal employees who were forced to go back to work rather than work from home showed up to work only to protest being there. You can't make this up. These people are deranged.
Goes further than that, Maria. Things as outrageous as trying to get workers back into the office. We actually had workers that showed up at the office to protest having to come back to work at the office. So we're finding all kinds of things with the Doge work, the squeal work that I have done for 10 years. And thank heavens we have President Trump and Doge, the Office of Government Efficiency, that's finally cracking down on these types of activities. Yeah. It even goes.
It's crazy, man. It is just, I think Dizzy said it correctly, entitled. I mean, and it's only going to get worse as somebody that sees the youth and how entitled these young people are. You think it's bad now. A lot of my friends that I know that work in human resources, I keep telling them, because they're complaining about, you know, employees complaining about this or that, which is, you know, something totally worth complaining about. But if you think it's the entitlement's bad now, if you think the entitlement from my generation or the subsequent generations, the current generation right now is the most entitled people that you will ever meet in your life, folks. And it's nothing comparable. I'm experiencing it right now. It's nothing comparable. These people expect you to bend over backwards for them not doing shit. They expect you to work harder than they are for something that you don't even reap the benefit of from. It's crazy. I'm telling you, you're going to see some crazy shit in 10 years. 10 years or less, you're going to see some wild entitlement. You haven't seen nothing yet. Quote me, clip me, beat me if you want to reach me, Kim Possible. Because this, the real deal, man, I'm telling you, it's going to be nuts. Speaking of the real deal, speaking of nuts, you have here Kash Patel. Dude, this is big. Massive narcotics seizure at Port Everglades. Listen to this, man. Listen to this. On April 9th, a significant narcotics seizure occurred at Port Everglades, Florida, where almost 50,000 pounds, 48,400 to be specific, of illicit drugs valued at $500 million, $500 million were offloaded by the U.S. Coast Guard. The operation involved multiple agencies, including the FBI and Department of Justice, under the leadership of Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel. This seizure is part of the broader effort to combat drug trafficking, targeting the financial operations of the CJNG and the cartels, and is expected to lead to 11 separate prosecutions in the Middle District of Florida. Not to mention that now that you apprehended these people, now I don't know if they just found the drugs floating out there, but if you're able to apprehend these people, well, maybe you could find out more information of what's going on here and find other operations taking place, maybe their routes, the timing of it, and where they're producing this stuff and go after them. But you see Pam Bondi right here. You see the Coast Guard walking them through. You got Kash Patel also here as well, looking freaking cooler than ever in those glasses. But they did a big presser yesterday. This is a great move by the Trump administration. You don't ever see, Joey could never. See, Joey would take these and give it to his son, is what he would do. Hunter. Sorry, hold on. Let me do the Biden voice. Hunter. Wait. What the fuck was that? Like Batman. Where are the narcotics? Where's the drugs? Where's Rachel? Like, where is she? Like you're Christian Bale, right? I don't know what that was. I apologize. Dizzy with the $5. Love you, Brad and Patriots. Thanks for tolerating me. We love you, Dizzy. You're part of the family, man. There's no tolerating you. You just are who you are, my friend. We love you. Thank you again for the $5, man. You're always chipping in. I appreciate that. That helps me run the show. Thank you to everybody that's always contributing. Hunter, let me take off my CPAP. Shh. Hunter, I have drugs to give you, my boy. But in exchange, I need you to give me little girls to sniff. And maybe, and just maybe, some Girl Scout cookies. Oh boy. Hello. Now, that's why you guys come here, right? For the goofiness, the craziness. You have Tulsi Gabbard coming out and saying that her task force is there to restore trust in the intelligence community. And I think, and I wanted to attach this to Kash Patel's big drug bust, because when you see them out there, it's one thing when leaders are behind closed doors working. It's another thing when you see them actually out there with everybody else, boots in the ground, doing work. When was the last time you saw the FBI director or hell, the attorney general doing a massive drug bust? It's like something you see in movies from like the 90s or the 80s, where they're out there doing press conferences, doing huge drug busts. I haven't seen that. When was the last time we saw something like that? You might see it in your local like news station, but not on a national stage like this. And it builds when you see leaders out there doing this type of work, protecting the American people. It does build confidence in your intelligence. And you should have confidence in your law enforcement. But when they've been so corrupt, stealing our money, allowing illegals to come in here, doing evil things to our wives and children, and spying on us, building hoaxes about presidents like we see with Donald Trump, it doesn't build confidence and it doesn't allow you to trust them. It takes years to build trust. It takes seconds to break it. This is going to take a long time. And Tulsi, everybody in the intelligence community has a lot of work to do to build American trust, but here she is talking about it.
The intelligence community has been eroded and undermined really for decades. There have been intelligence failures, abuses of power, weaponization and politicization of the intelligence that the community provides. You talked about some of the examples of the things that our team that is made up of some of the most talented intelligence officers across the community who love our country and who have been so disgusted and betrayed by leaders who have weaponized it to serve their own political or personal interests. You've gone down a list of many of the things that we're doing. I'll mention a few here. First, you're right. It's not just as simple as saying, okay, hey, go and find these documents. We'll declassify them and release them tomorrow. As you can imagine, the more we dig, the more we find. And we see how people are sometimes, in some cases, resistant to providing us with those documents. In other cases, they have been hidden with the hopes that no one would ever find them. Related to the Senator Kennedy assassination files, the MLK assassination files, unlike the JFK files, these have never been scanned. They've never been digitized. These are pieces of paper, hundreds and thousands of them, that have been sitting in boxes at the National Archives and Records Agency. So we've had over 100 people manually scanning every one of these pages, preparing them to fulfill what President Trump promised the American people: maximum transparency and the release of these files that have never been released publicly before. We're not stopping there. We know that not all of those documents have been turned over to the National Archives Agency, and so we've got teams out there going and searching in warehouses at the FBI, at the CIA, and other places to uncover related documents that for one reason or another were never turned over before. So President Trump is very serious, obviously, about working to achieve that maximum transparency. That transparency will allow us to bring about accountability around the Russia collusion hoax, for example. The more we dig, the more we find the extent of the seriousness and the intent of that whole operation was very consistent with what we found in Stalin's operation. Show me the man and I'll show you the crime. It is disheartening to see these things, but it also provides us the opportunity to tell the American people the truth about what's been going on so that we can make sure we try to bring about an end to it and bring about that accountability.
And with with that truth, you have to show the evidence. If you're going to be transparent, you got to show people the evidence. So we'll keep you up to date on what's going on with that. But like I said, it's going to take years to build trust. It's the government. You're speaking to a party here that doesn't exactly have a lot of faith in government within itself. So that's why Republicans used to want smaller government, especially fiscal conservatives. We want really small government. But that is today's episode, folks. We'll be back here later today for an episode of Dark MAGA, premium member only. Folks, by the way, just so we're getting just as many people watching our premium content that we do for our normal podcast. Now, it won't show the numbers live, but if you look at the numbers on the back end, we're getting just as many amount of people and sometimes more people during our Dark MAGA that's restricted to premium members only on Rumble than we do on some of our actual normal podcasts, which is it's amazing because it's restricted. I don't want it to be, by the way. We will definitely, the reason why I want to go tonight is, one, obviously we do Dark MAGA late at night. You have to be a premium member on Rumble only, but there are times throughout the month that we open it up to everybody. So that's going to happen Tuesday next week. We are going to open Rumble, the Dark MAGA podcast, open to everybody next Tuesday. So please join us, you guys. I want you in there. Just know my heart wants you in there, but we have to do this for the sake of making sure we abide by our contract here on the Bald Brad Show with Rumble. And please, thank you for your understanding on that. I want you all in here with me too. If I didn't have to do it, I wouldn't. But I really appreciate all of you always joining the show. Thank you to everybody that donated, everybody that's always showing up. You guys are freaking awesome. And I love you guys to death. And I look forward to, let's not die. I don't really like that saying, but I care about you. I appreciate that. Blackbird gifted 1 subscription to the Bald Brad Show, and it goes to Miriam. That a girl. Miriam picked it up. Hell yeah. Good for you, Miriam. Love that. Thank you, Blackbird. Appreciate that, sir. Appreciate that. Now, with that being said, we'll be back here this evening. If you could join us, would love that. If you can't, we'll be back here tomorrow morning for, is it a Friday episode tomorrow? Oh, I love Friday episodes. Friday episode tomorrow here at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. With that being said, take care, Patriots.